This is Just Listen, hosted by George. Today is March 2nd, 2026. Welcome to the podcast. And as usual, I would encourage you, after you listen to my podcast, to send it to other people, and you subscribe, which you already have, and recommend to them that they subscribe. Today, I want to talk about the U.S. federal government policy on the Trump admin's actions in Iran. How is this being reported by the mainstream? The central point is, can a president start a conflict abroad, and what role does Congress play into that? Now, you can watch the news and see how people have been framing this and trying to change the narrative. It happened yesterday, but yet already the narrative is being pointed towards whether a president can start a conflict without getting the approval of the House of Representatives, their concurrence, and their input. So, according to the Constitution, Article 2, Section 2, Clause 1 provides that the president should be the commander in chief of the Army and Navy of the United States and of the militia of several states when called into the actual service of the United States. So, commander in chief means that the president is over the military. And also, if we look at what happened in 1973 with the War Powers Act, that gives the president authority as well. So, the War Powers Act says Congress passed the War Powers Act to clarify the roles of Congress and the president. So it requires the president to notify Congress within 48 hours of committing troops to hostilities, and generally requires they may be withdrawn within 60 days unless Congress authorizes a longer stay. Now, let me backtrack on something that I said. Or is this a conflict, or are we at war? So if you look at the mainstream media, we're not sure exactly that they know if it is a conflict or if it is a war. The language that I just read you and have been reading you points toward Congress gets involved if it is a war according to the Constitution, and it gives the president the authority to go into conflicts based on the 1973 War Powers Act, and that action has to be told to Congress within 48 hours. Now, those of you who have been watching the news have seen that the president did say that there might be some consequences if the Iranians did not end their nuclear power programs. Now, this morning on the news, you can check me out with the mainstream media. They started changing the narrative that the president was trying to change the regime. They call it regime change. and that had absolutely nothing to do with it. Now, go point by point here. So, here is what the congressional Democrats are saying. So they are demanding a vote on the War Powers Resolution, arguing that President Trump lost a massive military assault without the constitutionally required congressional approval. Now, remember, conflict versus war. So if it's a conflict, you had to alert Congress within 48 hours. And the president said military action, never said conflict or anything like that. So the devil is in the details of the mainstream media saying war, the president saying that it was a military strike, and then, oh, by the way, the others are saying that it's a conflict. So you can watch the news if you don't believe that, but that's what's going back and forth between this tug of war between the House of Representatives and the President of the United States. Now, also, the Democrats are calling into question intelligence infiltration, meaning that some other countries, you'll have to read to who they think was in Iran, getting information and human spies, and Congress, the Democrats are also pointing to that the supreme leader was assassinated. So you've got to go and look at that and then see what you think about that. Now, let me frame something that I think is very important. Congress, both the Senate and the House, get intelligence briefings. Democrats and Republicans both have people that are cleared on these intelligence reports from the other country. Then the same intelligence reports the president and his senior staff get as well. What am I getting to? Maybe the president is seeing information that the general public doesn't see, to include news correspondents. What I'm really leading into is that there is no trust between Congress and the president whatsoever. And based on what I said earlier, with how information is given to the general public, that is a bad sign for the country, because who are you going to believe? And also, I believe if you look at all of the details, because the point is, can the president order strikes in these conflicts? Why is it that after that we get into the other side, because both sides do it, of saying that it's not legal, when the evidence supports that it is? Now, let me tell you the reasons that are published for everyone to see. Halting nuclear ambitions, preventing weaponization. So on this point, Iran was on the verge of achieving nuclear weapons capability, which is an existential threat to Israel and grave danger to global security. The President Trump, also said that they were developing a long range nuclear missile. Now, the president said that. So, who do you want to believe? The people who are getting the classified briefings and briefing the president? Or some in Congress that might not even be on the intelligence committees, and also a mayor who has no facts and details on anything classified going on in the country. Also, we're looking at exhausted diplomacy. If you can stomach the mainstream news for a couple of hours, you know this, that both sides were trying to get a diplomatic solution, eliminated imminent threats and terrorism through these proxies that we all know are out there, protection of U.S. personnel, that would be another one, from being stationed abroad and these proxy groups coming after American service members. And then we have supporting the Iranian people and change. They say regime change, but we're not doing that because the president said that we weren't doing that. So, and also little things. Restoration of U.S. credibility, which the Republicans say we don't have anymore. So, based on these facts and details, the American people have to decide if President of the United States has the power to order these strikes. So, are they strikes? Is it a conflict? Is it a war? Well, the mainstream media, as I said earlier, they're calling it a war. Every other blurb, every other news feed, that's what they're saying. When the president said that it was a precision strike, they named it, and that's where we're at. The reason that I make this last point is, and I just saw this a couple of minutes ago, where a mainstream news media agency was asking the public prior to the strike what their opinion was on us being involved in Iran in the first place. And it's always the details that matter to the question. So if you look at what the polling is saying, which might be another form of persuasion to get the administration to do something, the numbers show that most Americans would be against it. But again, how was the question framed? Especially if the mainstream media is constantly telling people that the president doesn't have the authority in the first place, even though that position, being president, does. So please be careful of what is being said and listen to my podcast. I'll give it to you straight. And I say that jokingly, but I actually mean that. Words do matter. And to push it to the fine point of the president can launch an attack abroad as long as that same position, meaning the president, lets Congress know. This is Just Listen, hosted by George. Let me know what you think and have a great day.